When I look at the 21st century civil rights social justice movement known as Black Lives Matter, it reminds me a lot of the comedy act of the 1930s, like Laurel and Hardy and the Three Stooges. A bunch of bumbling, stumbling idiots who have exactly no idea what they're doing or how to go about what they want to accomplish. When it comes down to your Black Lives Matter, the whole movement makes absolutely no sense. You ask yourself, what is the purpose of Black Lives Matter? Is it to tell people that Black Lives Matter? Or is it to show people that Black Lives Matter? What does the whole social justice component entail? Is it about getting policy to change in America regarding the mistreatment of black men? Or is it about trying to facilitate some sort of dialogue between black men and police officers? There's no sort of structure to this movement, no sort of organization to this movement, and no sort of mission to this movement. So no one knows what it's about, what it wants, or what it wants to accomplish. And when you look at the Black Lives Matter movement, it is pretty much mostly emotion. These guys follow the same paradigm over and over again, and they wonder why they don't get any results. Whenever we have a shooting of a black man by a white cop, then we see the Black Lives Matter people coming out to get outraged. They march and protest, and then a couple of weeks later, when some store owner in a Korean or an Arab store puts a pair of Air Jordans in the window that are brand new from Nike, we don't hear from these people ever again. And that's the big problem with your Black Lives Matter movement. They don't have any follow through. They don't have any commitment. And that main reason why they don't have any follow through and any commitment is because they don't have a set mission or a set of goals that they want to accomplish. What is it that Black Lives Matter wants to do? What does it want to accomplish? What is the purpose? Because we look at the track record of Black Lives Matter since its inception in the aftermath of the George Zimmerman verdict with the death of Trayvon Martin, and they haven't been able to accomplish a single thing. George Zimmerman is still roaming free. Darren Wilson is still roaming free with no indictment. Officer Daniel Pantaleo is still on the job 2 years later after the death of Eric Garner. And right now, in the aftermath of the deaths of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile, we can pretty much see what the outcome is going to be. In the last 5 or 6 years, Black Lives Matter's protests may have made a lot of noise and gotten a lot of attention, but they have not led to any indictment of any police officers for these deaths, nor have they gotten any police officers terminated from their jobs. Again, the officer who choked out Eric Garner is still on the job right now in the second year after the death of Eric Garner, still collecting a paycheck, and his black female supervisor who let this man do this is still on the job collecting a paycheck. So, for all of this marching and protesting, what is the long-term impact of Black Lives Matter? When we look at Black Lives Matter, we pretty much see that this organization has no focus, has no direction, and cannot set a single goal. I mean, a true organization can set goals, it has a direction, it has a reason for what it's there for and what it wants to accomplish. When I look at this Black Lives Matter movement, it has not proven to the world what it's about. How do you plan on showing that a black life matters? How do you plan on presenting a foundation to make people understand the value of a black man's life? As a black man myself, I can come up with a much better foundation and a mission than this farce known as Black Lives Matter. Because in addition to talking about these issues with police brutality and race relations, I would think an organization like your Black Lives Matter would also be focused on dealing with black issues in the black community. It's just crazy to me that these guys only come out when there's a black person killed by a white cop or a non-black person, yet we never see them going to areas like Chicago where black people are being killed in the dozens a day. and shot in the dozens a day. We don't see anybody talking about um, conflict resolution in the black community. I would think a Black Lives Matter movement would be trying to teach black men conflict resolution and how to solve problems. And you would think a Black Lives Matter movement would be focused on teaching young black males a protocol for engaging and interacting with police officers, because one of the primary reasons that black people have trouble with police is because they don't understand that there's a protocol for dealing with authority figures such as police officers. And I look at black males today, and they aren't being taught there is a way to conduct yourself when you deal with authority figures such as police officers. These days, with a lot of these guys coming out of these single mother households, they aren't being taught the social skills on how to navigate a troubling situation such as dealing with a police officer. And I don't see Black Lives Matter making that a part of its agenda. I don't see it being a part of their mission. These guys never come out talking about ways to prevent the deaths of black men at the hands of police officers. Instead, all they do is come out in the aftermath of the death of a black man by a police officer. Again, if this movement was serious about proving that black men's lives mattered, they would have a more comprehensive platform and a more comprehensive message. When I look at your Black Lives Matter, all I see are a bunch of guys who are bumbling and stumbling as they march and protest, shuck and jive, and then try to play a blame and shame game with white and non-black people to say that black men have been victimized by brutal police. And they only do that because they want to get the attention and approval of white people. Because when these same black people are murdered by other black people, you don't hear a peep from your Black Lives Matter. July 4th weekend in Chicago, you had over 61 shootings, yet we didn't hear from Black Lives Matter. And here in New York, we had 7 shootings. No word from your Black Lives Matter. And that really proves that their message, is unfocused and directionless. You can't say that Black Lives Matter when it comes down to white police officers and then not say that Black Lives Matter when it comes down to black people. That is the main issue that I've had with Black Lives Matter, is that they don't want to say that a black life matters in its entirety. It's only in the context of white people. So in their eyes, we have to prove to white people that Black Lives Matter. No, we have to prove that Black Lives Matter by showing a value of black life by black people. Black people themselves have to show that a black life matters by doing things to protect the lives of the black people in their black community, and they have to do that in a more constructive way than marching and protesting, because marching and protesting does not do anything. At the end of the day, all you're left with are sore throats and tired feet. I mean, I look again at the end result of all of this marching and protesting that Black Lives Matter has done over the last 4 or 5 years, and it has had next to no impact whatsoever. Not a single indictment, not a single termination, not a single verdict that has proven beneficial to black people. The whole mission, pretty much, of this movement is it makes people feel good, but it doesn't help them grow. And I look at that, and that's why I call it pretty much a waste of time. The civil rights movement of the 1960s at least had goals, it had a purpose, it had a direction. They wanted to achieve legislation that pretty much guaranteed the civil rights of black people. They wanted to ensure the protection of voting rights for black people. They set out to create a platform for black people that would protect their civil rights and voting rights. Unfortunately, when I look at this Black Lives Matter movement, I don't see any sort of mission. I see a bunch of black people who are disorganized, black people who are directionless, and black people who are unfocused. They only come out, again, only when a black person is murdered by a white cop or a non-black person, and they pretty much ignore all the black-on-black crime that is going on in their communities. when you talk about Black Lives having to matter, again, you have to talk about it from the context of Black Lives mattering not just to white cops and non-black people, but you have to talk about it in the context of Black Lives mattering to black people. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.